We're talking about the Stock Act. I know there's been some back and forth on what's the appropriate time and that people should notify the public. I just hope at the end of the day our body is not afraid of transparency at every level. That amendment, which I brought forward in the committee that I sit on, which dealt with the Stock Act, made sure that all issues around any transactions that you make are going to be publicly disclosed in a timely manner, 30 days, but electronically. So it doesn't matter where you are around this country, you can access it. So I hope we don't forget what our goal is here, and that is to create more disclosure, more transparency, so people know what we are doing here in Congress, and the Stock Act is just one of those steps. I rise today, Mr. President, to support the Stock Act as a sponsor of this act, legislation prohibiting inside trading by members of Congress and their staffs. Since day one in the Senate, I've made transparency a top priority in my office. Alaskans deserve to know what their members of Congress are up to, and that is why I've worked hard to make sure that they have access to critical information. I believe we must hold ourselves to a higher standard. Since being elected, I have posted my personal disclosures, my personal financial disclosures, on my Senate website, so my constituents have full knowledge of how and what I'm engaged in, and they can get it electronically, access it electronically to my personal information anytime they want. This is something the senators are not required to do, but is just common sense. I'll talk more about the transparency in just a moment. Now, when it comes to the Stock Act, I know my constituents at home in Alaska and other Americans are probably shocked this bill is even necessary. They're asking themselves, and I've heard this, is it really legal for members of Congress to participate in inside trading? The fact is, inside trading is illegal for all Americans, including members of Congress. All along, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, has had the authority to enforce inside trading laws. But it's time for a little clarity. Trust and accountability are critical to our roles here in Congress. That's why I support and have co-sponsored this important bill, the Stock Act. The idea in this phrase stands for Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge, again, the Stock Act. This bill reaffirms that it is against the law for members of Congress to engage in inside trading and confirm that anyone who doesn't follow the rules will be prosecuted. Members of Congress are not and should not be immune. We have a responsibility to do our jobs in an honest, open, and transparent manner, and to demonstrate that we are here every day fighting for our residents, in my case, the residents of Alaska. All you need to do is look at Congress's approval rating to figure out Americans don't think we have lived up to our end of the deal. This bill is an important step in the right direction to regaining public trust. However, just reminding our colleagues of laws that should have already known about is not enough. Transparency is a key element of moving forward. And like I said, it's just common sense. That is why Senator Tester and I introduced a transparency amendment during the markup process. As we sat in the committee listening to the testimony, the debate, we thought it was necessary to take even an additional step. And I'm pleased to say it was adopted and incorporated into this bill by the full committee. The provision is simple. It requires that the annual financial disclosure form, the ones that I put on my website, filed by members of Congress and their staffs, be posted online and accessible to the American public. When you think about where we are in this world, the 21st century, with all this electronics and telecommunications, how we're not doing that today. I went on the Alaska Public Offices Commission website, which is the equivalent of what we're talking about today. And if you want to file yours in Alaska, your disclosure form as an Alaska state legislator, or in my case as a former mayor when I was there, it's now all electronic. That's how it's filed. The current system that we have here is outdated. It's not transparent. It's not easily accessible to our folks back home. Under this new provision, members, candidates, staffs must file their financial disclosure forms electronically. They'll use a new system created and maintained by the Secretary of the Senate, the Sergeant at Arms, and the Clerk of the House of Representatives. The American public will be able to search, sort, and download data contained in the financial disclosure forms. This information will be maintained online for 6 years during their time in service and after the member leaves office, 6 years after they leave. I want to commend Chairman Lieberman and Ranking Member Collins and Senator Gillibrand and Brown and Levin for their work on this piece of legislation. The Stock Act will make Congress more accountable, and I hope it will inspire confidence in the American people that we're here to represent the interests and not our own. Again, I would encourage the passage of this legislation. It is another step to ensure that we have full transparency, and we should never be afraid of making sure our folks back home know exactly who we are, what we're doing, and what our work is here in Washington.